The Last Hunt. In the time when mammoths still walked the frozen earth and saber-toothed cats ruled the night, there existed mysteries that modern science is only beginning to understand. This is the story of the Last Hunt. A tale of intelligence, betrayal, and the strangest alliance ever formed between man and beasts 40,000 years ago. In what we now call the Dordogne region of France, lived a clan of Neanderthals known as the Stone Shadows. But these were no ordinary cave dwellers. Archaeological evidence suggests they possessed knowledge that shouldn't have existed, knowledge of astronomy, of animal behavior so complex it baffles scientists today, and most mysteriously, the ability to communicate with creatures that should have been their mortal enemies. The clan's greatest hunter was Grok, a massive Neanderthal whose intelligence far exceeded what we once believed possible for his kind. His skull, discovered in 1987, showed brain capacity larger than modern humans, with unusual bone formations that scientists still cannot explain. But Grok's story is not found in any textbook. It lives only in the deepest cave paintings, hidden in chambers so remote that only 3 people have ever seen them. The mystery begins with what paleontologists call the impossible hunt. In caves throughout Europe, we find evidence of massive kills, entire herds of woolly rhinoceros, cave bears, and even young mammoths, all slaughtered simultaneously with a precision that should have been impossible for Stone Age hunters. The kill patterns suggest coordination on a scale that would challenge modern military tacticians. But here's what makes scientists lose sleep. Mixed among the human tool marks on these ancient bones are tooth marks from cave hyenas, not random, scavenging marks, but organized, purposeful cuts that match the human hunting patterns perfectly. As if predators and prey had worked together, Grok had discovered something that would change everything. During the harsh winter of the Great Freeze, when game was scarce and many clans were starving, he noticed something strange. The cave hyenas, massive, intelligent pack hunters, were following the same herds as his people, but they weren't competing. They were watching, learning, almost as if they were waiting one night while tracking a wounded mammoth calf. Grok found himself face to face with the pack's alpha female, a scarred giant the clan called Moon Eye for the pale mark across her face. According to the cave paintings, what happened next defies everything we know about prehistoric predator behavior. Instead of attacking, Moon Eye approached slowly, her head low. She had something in her jaws, a piece of carved bone, etched with symbols that matched the ones Grok's clan used to mark their territory. But how could a hyena have obtained such an artifact? And more impossible still, how did she know what it meant? The truth, painted in ochre and charcoal on cave walls that remained hidden for millennia, reveals a partnership that challenges our understanding of both human and animal evolution. Grok and Moon Eye had been watching each other for months, each recognizing in the other an intelligence that transcended species. The cave paintings show them developing a form of communication using stone arrangements, specific howls, and body language so sophisticated that modern animal behaviorists struggle to decode it from the ancient artwork. They weren't just hunting together, they were strategizing, planning complex multi-day operations that required understanding of weather patterns, animal migration routes, and pack psychology. But their alliance attracted attention from something far more dangerous than any Ice Age predator. The paintings speak of the Skull Collectors, a rival clan of Cro-Magnons who had been systematically eliminating Neanderthal groups across the region. These weren't random territorial disputes. Archaeological evidence suggests targeted genocide, with Neanderthal skulls arranged in ritual circles. Their unique knowledge lost forever. What made Grok's clan special wasn't just their intelligence. It was their discovery of what scientists now call behavioral modernity. Thousands of years before it was supposed to develop, they had learned to work with their environment, rather than simply dominate it, forming alliances with other species that shouldn't have been possible. The skull. Collectors had heard rumors of Neanderthals who could speak with beasts and controlled demon wolves, their terrified description of the hyena pack. To them, this represented not evolution, but abomination, something that threatened the natural order they believed in. The final hunt began during the season of the blood moon. The skull collectors had surrounded Grok's territory, cutting off escape routes and driving away the game. It was psychological warfare designed to starve the stone shadows into submission, but they hadn't counted on the alliance between human and hyena. Intelligence. What followed was the most complex prehistoric military operation ever recorded in cave art. Grok and Munai didn't just coordinate their two groups, they orchestrated a symphony of survival involving every species in their territory. Cave bears were guided to specific positions. Mammoth herds were subtly redirected. Even the migration patterns of birds were influenced to create the conditions they needed. The cave paintings show the night of the last hunt in terrifying detail. The skull collectors approached what they thought was a helpless, starving clan. Instead, they walked into a trap 30,000 years in the making. Grok's people didn't fight like traditional hunters. They fought like a natural disaster. Hyenas attacked in coordinated waves while Neanderthals used the chaos to strike from impossible angles. Cave bears, guided by careful planning, emerged from hidden passages to block escape routes. Even the terrain itself seemed to fight against the invaders, as carefully placed stones triggered avalanches and rockfalls at precisely the right moments. But the most chilling detail in the cave paintings is what happened to the skull collectors. Leader, a giant Cro-Magnon warrior whose skeletal remains were found in 1993, with his skull intact, but his mind apparently, changed. The bone analysis revealed no physical trauma, but isotope studies suggested that in his final days, he had begun eating the same diet as the hyenas, following their pack behavior, even trying to communicate in their language. The victory should have secured Grok's clan for generations. They had proven that intelligence, cooperation, and adaptation could triumph over brute force and hatred. But the cave paintings reveal a darker truth about the cost of their survival. The alliance with Munai's pack had changed both species in ways they didn't understand. Grok's people had gained abilities that made them more than human, but also less. They had learned to think like predators, to see the world through eyes that measured everything in terms of pack survival, rather than individual conscience. Munai's hyenas had evolved to developing problem-solving abilities that put them closer to human intelligence than any wild animal had ever been. But intelligence without human morality created something unprecedented, a predator species that could plan, anticipate, and manipulate with the cognitive power of humans, but none of their social restraints. The final cave painting, hidden in a chamber so deep that it took archaeologists 17 hours to reach it, shows the inevitable conclusion. Grok stands alone in a circle of bones, not the bones of enemies, but of his own clan. Munai sits beside him, her pack arranged in perfect formation around them both. They had won their war, but in becoming the perfect hunters, they had lost their humanity. The intelligence that had saved them had also doomed them, creating a feedback loop, where the need to survive had overridden everything else. They had become so efficient at killing that they had killed their own capacity for the social bonds that made civilization possible. The mystery deepens when we consider the evidence that has been found. Grok's remains, discovered in 2001, show signs of voluntary starvation, despite being surrounded by abundant food sources. Munai's skeleton, found in the same cave system, reveals that she died of old age, impossible for a hyena in the wild, suggesting she had been cared for long after she could no longer hunt. Most puzzling of all are the tool marks found on both skeletons. Careful, deliberate cuts made with stone implements, but not for any practical purpose. The patterns match the symbolic engravings found throughout the cave system, as if someone had tried to carve the story of their alliance directly into their bones after death. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery came in 2019, when ground penetrating radar revealed a chamber beneath the main cave system. Inside, archaeologists found something that shouldn't exist: a collection of hyena bones, arranged in complex geometric patterns, with clear evidence of deliberate modification using human tools. Someone, or something, had been giving the hyenas a proper burial, complete with grave goods and ritual arrangements that mirror human burial practices from the same period. The implications are staggering. Either Grok's people had developed funeral rites for animals 10,000 years before such practices appeared anywhere else, or the hyenas themselves had learned to honor their dead in human fashion. The truth may be even stranger than either possibility. Chemical analysis of the cave walls reveals that the final paintings were created not with traditional ochre, but with a pigment that shouldn't have been available in that region, a mineral composite that modern geologists have only found in caves that were sealed for at least 50,000 years. This suggests that Grok and Moon Eye's alliance led them to discover cave systems that had been untouched since before the last interglacial period, caves that might have contained evidence of even earlier human-animal partnerships, or knowledge left by previous species that had achieved the same dangerous balance between survival and consciousness. The story of the last hunt forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of intelligence and evolution. If Neanderthals could form complex alliances with other species 40,000 years ago, what other partnerships might have existed? What other knowledge was lost when the last Neanderthal populations disappeared? Modern DNA analysis has revealed that most humans today carry Neanderthal genes, but we also carry genetic markers that don't match any known human species. Markers that some scientists believe might have come from hybridization with species we haven't yet identified. Species that might have been more like Moon Eye's evolved hyenas than anything we currently understand. Recent discoveries in Siberia have uncovered evidence of wolf populations with unusually large brain cases and tool-use behaviors that developed around the same time as Grok's alliance. In Australia, Aboriginal cave paintings describe thinking dingoes that could solve complex puzzles and communicate with humans. In North America, some Native American tribes have legends of brother wolves that spoke human languages and helped design hunting strategies. All of these stories share common elements: enhanced intelligence in wild animals, human-animal partnerships that crossed species boundaries, and the eventual disappearance of both the human groups and their animal allies, as if the same pattern has repeated throughout human history, only to be forgotten or dismissed as mythology. The cave paintings of Grok and Moon Eye end with an image that has puzzled archaeologists since its discovery. It shows two figures, one clearly human, one clearly hyena, but their outlines overlap and blur together as if they were becoming one creature. Around them, other figures watch from the shadows, their species impossible to determine. Some researchers believe this represents the ultimate evolution of their alliance, a merging of human intelligence with animal instinct that created something entirely new. Others interpret it as a warning about the dangers of crossing natural boundaries, a prehistoric cautionary tale about the price of survival at any cost. But the most intriguing interpretation comes from studying the chemical composition of that final painting. The pigments used contain compounds that only form under extreme pressure and heat, conditions that wouldn't have existed in the cave naturally. This suggests that the image was created using materials that had been transformed by some process unknown to Stone Age technology. Unless, of course, Grok and Moon Eye's alliance had led them to discoveries that went far beyond simple hunting partnerships. Discoveries about the nature of consciousness itself, about the possibility of transferring intelligence between species, about forms of existence that transcended the boundaries between human and animal, individual and pack. life, and something else entirely. The Last Hunt remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries because it challenges everything we think we know about human evolution, animal intelligence, and the development of consciousness itself. It suggests that 40,000 years ago, at least one group of our ancestors achieved a level of interspecies cooperation that we can barely imagine today. But it also warns us about the dangers of that achievement. Grok and Moon Eyes succeeded in creating the perfect hunting partnership. But in doing so, they may have lost their essential humanity. They became so efficient at survival that they forgot how to live as anything other than predators. Today, when we look at our modern relationship with animals, with technology, with the forces we use to ensure our survival, perhaps we should remember the lesson of the Last Hunt. Intelligence without wisdom, cooperation without conscience, survival without soul. These lead not to evolution, but to a kind of successful extinction. Grok and Moon Eye achieved immortality through their cave paintings, but they paid for it with their lives, their humanity, and perhaps their very consciousness. They became legends by becoming something that could no longer truly live. Their story reminds us that the greatest hunts are not always for food or territory, but for the balance between what we can become and what we should remain. And sometimes the most dangerous prey we can pursue is our own unlimited potential. This is the mystery of The Last Hunt, a story written in stone and bone, in chemical compounds and genetic markers, in the dark spaces between human and animal, between intelligence and instinct, between survival and extinction, and in the deepest caves, where the paintings of Grok and Moon Eye still watch from the walls. Some say you can still hear the echo of their alliance, the sound of consciousness, itself learning to hunt in ways that transcend species, transcend time, and transcend the boundaries of what we thought was possible.